Okay, want to make a video today to deploy a React application to gcloud. Um, uh, Separate, so a front end app separate from the back end app. And so um, many of you in my class currently at the end of November have a retro Amazon backend deployed to gcloud. And what you need to do, of course, is make sure that your backend is up to date with your code. And so the first thing I'm going to recommend, if you're in my class, make sure that gcloud is the current version of your backend code. So as we began writing a front end, we refactored a fair amount of things on the back end locally. And so we have on our local code new code that is not live on gcloud. And so what you're going to need to do is run the gcloud app deploy to go ahead and redeploy your backend to get your gcloud backend up to date with your code base. So that's kind of the first thing you need to do, is make sure that you got your backend up to date on gcloud, and my backend is up and running. I went ahead and did a deployment. Here's my gcloud for my backend. I can go to my dashboard, and I can go to my App Engine dashboard and kind of get the URL of my backend. Now, obviously, I've got a static home page that's not really relevant anymore. We're going to replace this static home page with a React app, of course. But then to test my routes, I can go to something like API Books List, and I get some you are not logged in. Of course, we've got some middleware protecting us here, so that you got to log in your user. So this is up. In fact, my just my demonstration that my backend is up and running on gcloud. Now, to get the front end up and running, the first thing I'm going to do is on gcloud. To get here, again, you just kind of go to cloud.google.com. That's the URL. And that'll take you here, and then you just click the console. So this brings you to the console.cloud.google.com, I guess, if you just want to type that URL. That'll get you here. You'll see the various projects that you have in this drop-down list. I have 3 currently, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project for my retro Amazon front end. So let's go down that process. Now, I do have my billing account for education. All of my class should have educational credits. Of course, it says you have 18 projects remaining in your quota. That's good. Request an increase or delete projects. I did a while ago hit one of my limits on my quota, so I had to change some things. And it's interesting. 18 projects. They must have upped that number, because not that long ago I think I had like 6 or 7 projects, and all of a sudden I hit my quota. So that's nice that number seems increased, at least to me. Retro Amazon front end is going to be my project name. It's a good time to name it here, something that you'll continue to use. Billing account for education is what you're going to need to select, and let's hit create. And we'll let that spin up. Okay, so let's go ahead and select my front end project. You are now viewing Retro Amazon front end. We have a project number, not so relevant, and project ID. Now, let's go ahead and open up locally our Retro Amazon front end. So Retro Amazon React is what I've been working on. And thankfully, backend deployment was super simple. As a reminder, we had an app.yaml file. App.yaml, kind of step 1 was put your runtime of Node in an app.yaml. And then we ran a command gcloud app deploy. And then we selected some settings, and troubleshot some problems. If there were any, ideally there weren't any problems, and boom, deployment was done. So deployment on the back end is really simple. Create your project, link your project, app deploy. So hopefully this is going to go just as smoothly on the front end. Again, kind of just doing this live here. So it is very normal to encounter problems. So we'll encounter problems is my guess, but would be nice if we didn't. So Retro Amazon front end, let's go to our code base. Here's Retro Amazon React. Looking at this, going back to my back end, one thing that I know I'm going to need to refactor is my CORS on my back end. So this is on my back end and it's saying, hey, this is my local host. Obviously my origin will no longer be on localhost. This will be my gcloud URL. So that's something that I'm probably going to need to refactor and then redeploy to my back end for it to support the new origin of a gcloud live URL. Okay, so that's just one thing moving forward. Let's go ahead and create our app.yaml. It's important to be in the root here, so maybe just come down here, app.yaml. Again, just kind of a settings file. And this has a little bit more to it, and I can kind of put this in the video. Not only a runtime property with a node value, but there's a handlers which says, hey, look for some static files inside of this dist folder, upload a dist folder, and so there's just a little bit more here, but this should be what you need. Now this file, if I'm remembering correctly, is very sensitive to the spaces and the syntax for getting this exactly how you need it. So don't change too much about this. In other words, have it exactly as is, and let's close that file. Now the next step is I need to switch my terminal to the correct project. And so this is a step that I've screwed up before. If you run a deployment to the wrong project, you're going to try and deploy your front end to the back end on gcloud. Clearly not going to work. So the Google Cloud command to change projects, right? gcloud, let me get my cursor out of the way. gcloud config set project. So we got to set our project to Retro Amazon front end. So I'm going to copy my project ID and paste my project ID right there. Okay, so definitely got to do this every time you run the gcloud app deploy command. You have to deploy to the correct project on gcloud. Again, not deploying to the correct project will screw things up. I was able to recover. You should be able to recover if you make that mistake, but your heart will drop and skip a beat if you're like me. Okay, so we set it to the right project. The next thing we want to do is a build, okay? And so the command here, this is a command to build your Vite app and essentially create that dist folder. So npm run build is going to create that dist folder with our static files that should, this is part of the deployment process, is getting everything lean and getting rid of any debugging things that you might have, breakpoints that you might have, these kinds of debugging things that aren't needed. Also notice, I'm just noticing here my API URL for env.local. It needs to say, this production needs to, I'm going to update this. So I'm going to copy this environment variable. I'm going to paste it right here. Now my API, this is no longer local host. This was my backend local host. Now, let me go back here. And this is now my backend URL. So to get this, again, I'm gonna go to my backend project. I'm gonna go to my dashboard, and then I'm going to go here. And this is what I'm looking for. You need the URL right here of your backend. And so I'm gonna replace localhost with that. So now that I've made that change, I need to, any changes on the front end, I'm gonna rerun this command to run build and essentially get deployment ready with that .env.production. Okay, and I'm hopeful that this is good enough. Sometimes we have to actually go onto the gcloud app and make environment variables on the console, but hopefully we don't have to do that. So I guess the message there is that sometimes you might have to create environment variables here in the command line interface or in the gcloud GUI interface. Okay, so we now have updated our one variable in our .env, and I reran build, and I've changed the project. So now let's see, we're getting close. So let's go ahead and deploy gcloud app deploy, and again, let's see what breaks. Okay, pick your region. We're in US Central, so that's our closest location for servers. So we're going to say 17. Okay, that spun up really fast, and services to deploy, it gives us a front end URL, so nothing broke here. However, page not found. And so when you get this, now we get to troubleshoot. So the way to troubleshoot is to change to our front end and see what kind of errors we see in our dashboard. And it says your App Engine application has been created. Let us help you deploy your app by pointing you at the relevant resources based on your programming language. And so I just kind of click back here. Let's go front end. Okay, and I'm noticing that App Engine isn't here. For example, if I go to my other React app and I go to Issue Tracker React, I do have this App Engine dashboard, which does not exist on my front end for Retro Amazon. So let me troubleshoot a little bit here. Let me think about this. Okay, what I'm going to do to troubleshoot is I'm going to go up into the search. I'm going to search for App Engine. And as you do that, you start typing App Engine. You know, this drop down products and pages. So let's go here. And it says your application engine application has been created. Let us help deploy your application by pointing at yada 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 on your language. So I'm going to click Get Started here. And of course, and it's been a while since I've done this. Maybe I did this and I just don't remember it. But I'm going to say resources node, standard environment. Okay, we've already downloaded the Cloud SDK. Already did it in a init. Okay, so I'm gonna just back up here now. I need to select node. How do I? Okay. It really wants me to download the SDK. I've already done this. Dashboard, App Engine still isn't on my dashboard. And maybe I just need to add it, and maybe that's Am I embarrassed? Silly me. I didn't. Do you want to continue? No wonder. I was like, it happened so fast. There it is. Oh, I didn't hit continue. Spend 5 minutes troubleshooting a problem. Now we can really see what broke. So the command to open up the browser is that, or you can just hold down Control, click the URL, and how about it? We got our front end at least being displayed. So this is great. Now getting our back end, of course, if I were to hit log in, I do not expect this to work, and I throw in my EA Gudmested. This should crash because it's still trying to hit localhost. And that CORS policy, how about that? My CORS policy is not up to date. Okay, so let's update the CORS policy on the back end. Okay, so what we get to do here is we're going to refactor this into an array of URLs. So we're going to support both localhost and another live domain. So this is localhost, and I need a copy. Now I need to copy my front end URL, which is just this right here. Let's copy that. And again, if you go now to the dashboard of our front end, we can go to the App Engine dashboard, and this is where you get the URL. Okay, and so I'm going to copy this into my back end and paste. Do we put the slash there or not? I don't know the answer there. I'm going to take the slash off and see if that makes a difference. That should be all that we need here. Of course, going to redeploy my backend now, so we got to change our project. So if I go back to that, config set retro Amazon backend, I'm just going to type front end, retro Amazon, yeah, backend was correct. So this is my backend, so I'm going to change the project back to my backend, updated project. Okay, so now my CORS gcloud app deploy. Do you want to continue? Don't forget to hit yes. You gotta laugh at yourself in this arena. Again, backend on the screen, backend in the URL, looking good. let it spin. Okay, now, it's always good to just kind of open up the back end and get the dumb static page. Okay, so that the back end is up and running if you can get to this dumb static page. Now let's kind of go here. Let's go back to our front end and let's refresh. In fact, I'm just going to, I don't know that it matters, but I'm going to close it. I'm going to close it, close that tab, close my GitHub, and let's go to my front end. Let's click login, and now let's see what breaks. EA Gudmested. Okay, and we are not seeing our books. So let's see, different error message, but we hit our back end. Like, we are demonstrating full stack live right now because we are logged in. However, if I were to dig down into this, we are getting a "you are not logged in." So the first question I have is, are there cookies being sent? And it doesn't seem like the back end is sending the cookies to the front end. Let's dig into that. Okay, so let's see what else we need to configure on our back end. Okay, the problem to the Chrome issue that we were having was in cookie settings, and so I thought it was maybe a double slash problem, but it wasn't. And so if I go ahead and just demo that we are live working, we have a login system functioning, and we can update our books appropriately. Now, this is not fully bug free, but it is live, it is working full stack again. To show this off, what I had to change specifically was in my back end. And so when I went to issue a user login cookie, what I had to do is come in here under my cookie options and say, hey, same side of none and secure of true, so it's HTTPS. And these two things together enabled me to fix that problem. Again, focusing on deployment, we've done that. The video will end here, and I will continue to troubleshoot my other bugs in another video.